Hello YouTube, what I bring to you this evening is a CMP 1911A1. This was originally issued in the United States Army. This particular 1911A1 has a Colt frame and a Ithaca arms slide. Both the frame and the slide were manufactured during World War II. I want to say respectively 1943 and 1942. So this is at the height of World War II. These two main components of this pistol were made. As you can see, it has the United States property mark, has the serial number right below it. The font is in like a 1940s, surprise. It also goes on to say M1911A1, U.S. Army. And if you notice, there is a electro pencil inscription to the right of the U.S. Army mark on the frame. It says lead or lead. And what that stands for, this pistol has been rebuilt and refinished. This probably occurred in the 1970s or early 80s, maybe even in the middle 60s. That happened at Letterkenny Army Depot in Pennsylvania. I forget the exact city where that is, but you can look it up. I believe that that depot is still in service today. So they do a lot of rebuild work for Army munitions, equipment, etc. for, different, for the U.S. Army, and I'm sure they work for other military entities in the United States. But anyhow, as you can see, it has your traditional brown plastic grips, which are period correct. Those are the original grips. They might not be the original grips to this gun, but in that rebuild program, this is what was selected to put back on. So they are original U.S. issue grips. They're kind of a brown plastic. The 1911 was used up into the early to mid 80s, replaced with the Beretta 92F. At that time, many of these pistols were still in inventory. Many had been rebuilt and basically put into storage in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. Many of these CMP pistols have come directly from U.S. Army storage. And storage, I mean in the sense of they were packed away in cardboard boxes with corrosion inhibiting material to protect their finish. So as you can see, this is a fresh, after a bead blasting of the parts, this gun was put back together. Obviously not the original slide, Colt frame, Ithaca slide, but they put this gun together as a rebuilt, essentially a pistol ready to go back into service in the U.S. military. And at that point, those guns went into storage. And luckily today, if you were on the list a couple years ago, if you sent in all your information into CMP, you were given a randomly generated number. My number was 12,743, if I remember correctly. And that took almost roughly 2 years for them to call me to offer me this 1911 for sale. They did offer me a field grade version. This is a service grade. So you can see on the tag, it says service grade there. You notice it also lists the slide and the frame, serial number. Some of the pistols that are shipping from CMP are actually original 1911s. And original, I mean they're not 1911A1s. The magazines they're supplying with the pistols are a U.S. military contract magazine. So I'll show you how you can kind of tell. There's your assembly number, manufacturer number. So just kind of your basic GI magazine. 7 shot. They only give you 1 mag. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take the pistol out of the case here. CMP provides you with a very nice cut water resistant, shock resistant case. Kind of see the top there. It's got the CMP logo. It's made in USA. This gun is, like I said, this has been refurbished, but they did not refurbish it. This was refurbished by the government. You can kind of see the slide in the frame. The tones don't match exactly, but the gun looks relatively new on the exterior. The finish looks really good. Obviously, you can tell this gun's been used quite a bit. The one thing that's interesting to note about the rebuilt guns with the rebuilt markings, such as this one with the lead mark on the side, or the Anniston Army Depot mark stamps on some of the rebuilt 1911s. The interesting thing about those is, those guns experienced a lot of use over the years in the U.S. military. So if this gun could talk, if the two pieces could speak, it'd be very interesting to hear their stories and their lineage and where they've been. They could have been potentially in World War II, Korea, Vietnam. The list goes on for service. The Gulf War, maybe the first Gulf War. Service in other countries, deployment for these guns. They could have sat in armories in Germany. Who knows? But anyways, this is a great program. It gives people a chance to own a piece of history rather than these things going into a metal grinder, right? So it's a great privilege to be able to purchase one of these. They do come with a certificate of authenticity. They also, in their little envelope, you get an invoice. There's some accessories below, but it's your basic stuff. It's your cleaning rod, your pistol lock, that sort of thing. As far as this versus a commercial, there's a lot of play. This is a mass-produced pistol at the time of World War II, where we were fighting, a huge war. So they were cranking these pistols out essentially by the millions or hundreds of thousands a year. You can also see a couple acceptance marks there. There's a P, there's a GHD. I believe that's somebody's initials, but those initials went on millions of pistols, the same ones. And if somebody knows what those are, you can comment in the video. There's a proof up on the slide, and there's kind of a center side alignment there, little hash mark. You can see the barrel is marked 45 auto, and it's got a drawing number. Let's see if we turn that around. A little better picture there. Sorry about the focus. It's got a drawing number 77919193. Now I believe that is a replacement barrel. So when this went through the rebuild process, this got a contractor barrel, from what I gather. If I'm wrong on that, please comment. I'm not a 1911 expert. Don't claim to be, but I can shoot the gun reasonably well. I can shoot pistols reasonably well, I think. So anyways, we'll turn the gun around here, kind of go over it, get a little better look at it. Very awesome. There's that lead mark. I've looked up some history on these rebuild 1911s that came out of the Letterkenny Arsenal, and I haven't really found much on them on the internet. There is quite a bit of information on the Anniston Army Depot rebuilds, but for the 1911, but not so much on the leads. Now there is quite a bit of information on the lead rebuilds that are for the M1 Garand. There's a lot of M1 Garands with LEAD rebuilt markings. So you can see the finish, other than being kind of a two-tone. There's probably a difference in material a little bit. The steel, the slide is probably going to be softer or harder than the frame. So the finish probably takes a different patina when it's completed. Very happy that I did not get a contract slide. Some of the service grades coming out of CMP have received a Airtronic or a Numax, basically, or a TZ military contract slide that were produced, from what I recall, in the 1970s or 80s. So those are real GI guns. Those are real GI slides. However, they are not World War II vintage. I would not be very happy paying $1,000+ for one of those and then receiving, the new slide essentially. So very happy that I got a period correct World War II 1911 A1. I've always wanted a 1911 A1 that was a, essentially U.S. Army issue, U.S. military issue. All your standard controls, everything's refinished.